Santiago got his undergraduate degree at the Catholic University in Quito in 2010 and came to the University of Florida, where he pursued a master's degree in with Susan Jacobson in wildlife ecology, and then a PhD with Len Branch in wildlife ecology. After leaving, or he finished his degree in 2012, he went back to be a professor at the university that he graduated from, the Catholic University in Quito, for 3 years, and then love and children brought him to Mexico, where he currently is at the Universidad Autónoma de San Luis Potosí in Mexico. And his interests are focused on the ecology and conservation of vertebrates, particularly large carnivores. And his work is also focused on this interactions between people and wildlife and how human actions affect wildlife habitats and natural landscapes. And he's got the goal of really contributing to the conservation of these larger tropical landscapes. His funding for his research came from wildlife ecology, the TCD program, the MORE program that funded the Amazon Conservation Leadership Initiative here at the University of Florida, and also World Wildlife Fund Russell Lee Train Fellowship. And he was one of the authors. He's in a number of publications, but one of the publications he had as a graduate student here in 2006 was the TCD Graduate Education Framework paper that Karen Kiner led and was published in Conservation Biology. So he was one of the students that was on that paper. And so with that, Santiago, thank you for being here and joining us.
Thank you very,
Take it away.
Thank you very much. So I will start talking a little bit more about myself. I didn't know you were going to do this introduction. Well, as you mentioned, I am a wildlife ecologist and studied at UF. It was maybe the most rich experience so far in my life, because all the opportunities you have there. I spent my master's, I did it in 2 years, but the time I needed to do. But for my PhD, I took a long time because I didn't want to leave Gainesville and UF. No. Besides that, I had a huge field work and needed to get a lot of resources to conduct my research, and then I moved to academia. For me, UF is still a big part of my life. The network I did at UF is really important, and I try to keep it active. Now I'm currently working in Mexico, as Betty said, on education. So I try to form students and lead them to wildlife conservation. He's a group of students here in Mexico, and still keep work in Yasuní, particularly in Ecuador, with Catholic University, where I was before coming to Mexico. Here's a course we did this summer in Yasuní on ecology of tropical forests, basically. And the network of UF is quite huge. We get together every time we meet in different occasions. Here's a meeting with WWF last year, and some UF alumni were there, and we of course spent time together and try to catch up and always try to exchange experiences and see how can we collaborate further. So it's a quite big legacy, I would say. UF is, and TCD is leaving behind. No? So in this part, I would like to thank a very special thanks to Marianne, because her work has been immense and has had a deep impact in conservation of Amazon, no? And forming people who's working and committed to Amazon conservation. So thank you very much, Marianne, for all the work you have done. Is really important. I think it has changed a lot in the region. I mean, it has a great, incredible impact. And I know it's your last course this year, so you are leaving quite a huge legacy behind you, no? And we hope to honor you with our work.
Thank you very much, Santiago.
So about myself, my interests and my research, I could divide my interests in two parts. First is how is this close relationship between people and wildlife, uh, especially how we use wildlife, especially hunting, no? How it moves along the time, and also how people who are not subsistence hunters also interact with wildlife, no? So basically conflict between people and wildlife, no? When I moved to US to study my master's, I started with this part with Susan Jacobson, with the Andean bear, no? Trying to see how Andean bears related to people and what were the kind of conflicts people have and how they responded to that. And later on, for my PhD, I moved into the hunting part and the other part of my research, which is to see how the landscape affects wildlife populations and communities. And in that sense, I try to combine both things for my PhD, you know, looking at how the landscape relates to wildlife exploitation and how that translates to animal conservation, you know, in that case, jaguar. You know? The other part that I am working on continuously is how roads, particularly within this landscape, affect wildlife. No, here you have some mammals, which are the most important animal group I work with. But working with roads now, I did a few years ago a study with a student, a master student in Quito. He did a survey of roadkills, no, and in a very biodiverse area of Ecuador, in the Andean foothills, towards the road that goes to our little Amazon. And what we found there is amazing results, no, because it's a tropical hotspot, no, biodiversity hotspot. So, for example, this animal here is a little snake that ended up to be probably a new species for science, no? So we have animals that are being roadkilled and we don't even know if they exist. So it's really important to conduct all these studies to see how infrastructure is modifying our landscape and how it's influencing wildlife populations. And why working in the Amazon, why I choose to work in the Amazon, because it's a center of biodiversity. It's really important, I think, for our planet. And basically that, no? We need to invest a lot of effort to keep it as the closest as it is, no? And within Ecuador, I'm working in this little spot, Yasuni, where also Betty works. And it's recognized to be, for being a really high biodiverse areas, no? So in the world, so really special place. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about my research, no, that I did for my PhD. So you read, hopefully you read the papers we sent, and we can discuss on that. So I decided to do this research because basically two reasons, no. My observation that this region is changing very fast because we have people, we have cities, we have a lot of resources, no? So what we see from the sky, from satellite imagery is a green thing, but on the ground it has a lot of effects of people, no? It's historically. So people is everywhere, no? Here you have a map of all the indigenous areas, not these yellowish areas, are all indigenous territories you know very well. The Amazon is entirely occupied, no? And our society is related to these indigenous people too, right? And we are modifying this landscape, and people, all of us, are modifying our behaviors and our way we relate with wildlife. So I wanted to understand that and a little bit narrower, specifically how increasing access to these natural areas where indigenous people live, how that will be changing how people uses wildlife, and how that will be translated to how that will be affecting a top predator that lives there, because people and this top predator, the jaguar, share resources. Both basically eat the same. People hunt deer, peccaries, large mammals, and jaguar too. So I hypothesized there was a series of cascading effects from building roads that provide access to markets, to how this access to markets change the use of wildlife in terms of using certain species and the magnitude they use the species, and how that reflected to wildlife, jaguar abundance and prey abundance on the landscape. No? So I focus my work in Yasuni, and the first part that I was studying these communities and their hunting, no? I did along the north part of Yasuni, where you have this oil road, no? And a few settlements that are at varying distances from the market, where they would go every weekend to trade meat, no? Now this activity is more controlled in Ecuador, but still they go every weekend and just sneak out the bushmeat through other routes. So now it's completely illegal and clandestine. You don't see it. No, before it was illegal at open and you could see it. Now it's more difficult. So with the collaboration of WCS, we surveyed hunting activities on this area along a year, and asked different questions of how people used wildlife. No? We trained young Waorani, the indigenous people who live there, to fill out reports of hunting, and so they provided us with the information on what animals killed, if they use them for sharing, what proportion they used for trading, and so on, and where they hunt. They used maps in each questionnaire to place, to sign out the site where they hunted. And with that way, with that method, we were able to do this spatial analysis of hunting, no? And having all the points where they went for hunting, no? These 5 different settlements, no? And based on that, we saw that this road is really increasing the area they have, that they can access, no? It's facilitating. So it's basically expanding the potential of wildlife harvest for these people and trade, no? And we see how people who were close to the markets focus more on large species, no? Here you have species that are highly tradable, peccaries. People like to buy this bushmeat, and people who live close to markets hunt a lot more of these animals, no? In comparison, people who live farther from markets hunt more species. They also hunt these large-bodied species, of course, but also a large proportion of species that have a high value for Waorani, but not really for outsiders, no? So you see a change in the use of wildlife. And then the last part was to see how this will be reflected, how this use will be reflected with the abundance of wildlife. So for that, I chose 4 different sites along Yasuni with different degree of accessibility, no? So in each of these sites, we use a lot of camera traps, no? In quite large areas, no? To survey wildlife, no? And we saw a dramatic difference between the occurrence of different species, no? of wildlife in areas very accessible, to areas that were very accessible, and to areas that were more remote from people, no? And for example, wildlife peccaries are species that are heavily hunted, easily detectable by hunters, and when they find a group of peccaries, they can kill 10, 20 at once, no? If they can, they do it. And you see here, this is the occurrence of these animals in the two areas that are farther away from people, and you see a very high occurrence, no? Whereas in the other two sides that are more accessible, you have a very low occurrence, no? Actually, in one side, we didn't detect wily peccaries, and there's a small occurrence for these sites at Queveriono, because just the model gives a small probability, you know, with the coverage we are using that are distance to sources of access, no? And in general, all these animals that are hunted, that are important for people for trading, have significantly lower occurrences in the areas that are more accessible to people, no? Such as tapir or this pauhil, no? This curacao, no? Salvin's curacao. In contrast, animals that are more resilient to hunting, or their distribution is not that, how can I say, they are more abundant in a landscape scale. No, they don't suffer these consequences that high, no? Such black agouti, for example, is a rodent that is commonly hunted near the little crops they have, but in a larger picture of the landscape, it's abundant, no? And finally, how did translated to jaguar abundance in the landscape? We saw that the most isolated area is the jaguar is in a better state, let's say, no? So you can have different, a very clear difference, no? From between the area that is more accessible along this road north of Yasuni, where the density of jaguars doesn't reach even one animal per 100 kilometers, to a density of 4, more than 5 jaguars per 100 square kilometers, no? So we were able to see this pattern, no? Despite that it's not so, it's easy to measure abundance of such a big animal. So to end up as conclusions, no, we in general know that wildlife is important for local people. If you talk to people, they will say it's important to them, no? They feed from what they survive with wildlife. So it's always curious to see why wildlife conservation is not a priority ever for conservation strategies, no? For governmental policies. Wildlife conservation is always a step below, no? For example, you have wildlife, forestry is always here, wildlife is here. I don't know if I'm making too much of a generalization, but in Ecuador, that's the case, no? So why is that? Maybe because the society see a low value for wildlife, no? I think that that's more or less what is happening, no? They don't see wildlife as important. So the question is, how can we increase the importance of wildlife for our society, no? We assume if we increase this importance, people will develop policies, develop actions to protect and conserve wildlife in the region, no? And for example, remember, Marianne just mentioned Brian Child, and I was thinking that too. No, he would say, if you increase the monetary value of wildlife, no, people will conserve, will try to manage and conserve that resource if that resource goes to them, right? So in that way, one strategy is just that, not try to make wildlife use more valuable, but ensuring that those resources go back to the community, not to the government that hardly communicates with these local communities, no? And finally, going back to UF and TCD, no? It's important to consider that we need to do a lot here. No, we don't have much time. Well, I won't be forever there, but luckily we have an institution like UF and TCD that is forming people like all of you. No, so we need a lot of you to work and try to answer questions that are useful for wildlife management and conservation. So that will be it. I don't know if you have any question.
Great. Thank you.